It's a very fascinating verse, as you point out. But of course, the Berditchever is going to take it towards the end. He's going to bring it back in and tie it up nicely.
Now tell me, why do the Goyim have it so easy?
Well, they say no pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. Parshat Aharei Mot, and we have a really beautiful short commentary by Kedushat Levi on what does it mean to perform mitzvot, really deeper meaning. So we'll see how that works out. So obviously, you do not need to know Hebrew to appreciate the teaching. But if you are and you want to follow the text, so you go to our website and the source sheet is you go to Jewish Resources and go to Parsha Videos, and you'll see the source sheet right there. And so you have both the psukim, and I'll read them in a moment after I finish the announcements, and you have the commentary by Kedushat Levi right there. And while you're on our website, feel free to browse around, see our services and programs. And most particularly, we have a new or a restructured Bar and Bat Mitzvah program called Simple.Meaningful, and you can also find information about that on the website. It's really wonderful. I invite you to take advantage of that or let other people know about this new program. And if you'd like to participate more in depth, I guess, we created a meetup.com, and you can join that meetup.com. And then every Wednesday morning, you'd like to join us live, you join the meetup.com group, and you can stay for questions and answers with us after the presentation. And finally, we always appreciate it when you subscribe, like, and share. So please do that, and thank you very, very much.
I just want to tell our listening audience that in general, we find in the Chumash, in the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, we find a total of 613 mitzvah commandments, things that you either have to do or should not do. These 613 commandments are, generally speaking, divided into 3 types or categories, 2 of which are going to be essential for today's lesson. The first type, which we're not going to dwell on, are called edus or edius, testimonial commandments, which simply mean that they are testifying to a remembrance of a historical event. For example, we eat matzah because we ate matzah as we exited during the exodus from Egypt. So that these are testifying to historical events type mitzvahs. They're easy to understand, and we don't have to get on. Today, we're going to be talking about the other 2 and their relationship to each other. Yes. So, for right now, very simply, mishpatim, civil rules or logical rules, such as don't steal. Right. Rules which, if we didn't have the Torah, as a society, we probably would have come up with these types of rules. Mm-hmm. And then there are the chukim, the edicts, the rules that on the surface don't seem to have any logical underpinnings. Right. So these are don't eat a pig, don't wear a garment with linen and wool. Why not? Right. So that's the third category. So that's very important for context.
So this is in the book of Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 4, and it's right on top of the source sheet. את משפטיי תעשו ואת חוקותיי תשמרו, ללכת בהם, אני Adonai Elohechem. That says, my rules alone shall you observe and faithfully follow my laws. I, Adonai, am your God. So laws are the chukim, and and rules are mishpatim. He does mention briefly, so I want to read the second pasuk, the second verse, which is number 5, and it's ushmartem et chukotai vet mishpatai, and you shall keep my laws and my rules. Asher yaseh otam adam v'chai bahem, by pursuit of which a human being shall live. Bahem ani Adonai. I am Adonai. So it's actually a critical verse for a lot of really Jewish thought and philosophy about when it says v'chai bahem, and you shall live by them, or you should be. In other words, you should live by him instead of you should die for them. It's like there's something about this is here to uplift, to affirm life. And I think that's a central core of Jewish thought. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. At the very end of the piece, the Bedichever is going to touch on V'chai Behem with the Hasidic interpretation according to what he said prior. Right. But just to let people know, there are some basic, and it's a strange thing to say, V'chai Behem. So your idea is going to come into play later on. Yeah. Simple understanding, Rashi says, La'ilam Haba, because people don't live, and you will live through them. Well, people, after 120 years, people die. So what do you mean live through them? I mean, everyone dies. So he says, yeah, but eternal life of the soul will be rewarded La'ilam Haba in the eternal world through keeping mitzvahs during our time in this world. That's the simplest explanation. Right. The Gemara says what you alluded to a moment ago, Reb Ruvain, that the Gemara in Yuma says we should live it through them and not die because of them. That's why we are allowed, except for very rare exceptions, we are allowed to violate most of the commandments in order to save a human life. That's one that a lot of people know. And I'll just mention a third interesting one. Sure. It says that ha'adam v'chai behem, and the Gemara, a different Gemara, says that this means that even a non-Jewish person who keeps the 7 notified rules of humanity, is considered as if you were the Kohen Gadol, as considered as if you were the highest level human on the earth.
Okay. That's right.
All it's a universalistic to a certain extent.
And a non-Jew who fulfills the 7 mitzvot of Noah is as much of a tzaddik as a Jew who fulfills the 613 mitzvot.
That's what I meant to say. Thank you. Thank you. Anyway, that's a little bit of V'chai Behem. It's a very fascinating verse, as you point out. But of course, the Bedichever is going to take it towards the end. He's going to bring it back in and tie it up nicely.
Now, tell me, why do the Goyim have it so easy?
Well, they say no pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. Et mishpatai ta'asu. My judgments.
My logical rules.
Yeah, my rules. Yeah, you shall perform. Ve'et chukotai tishmeru. And my edicts you shall guard. Now, the word tishmeru is an interesting word, and I think it's important to also look at the difference here between the word ta'asu and tishmeru. So ta'asu is you'll perform. Ta'asu is pretty bland. There's the rule, do it. Perform the rule. But tishmeru has more strength to it. It means guard it, keep it. It's a shomer is a guard. It's like a soldier who's guarding a parameter. Is a shomer. Is right as a guard. So tishmeru has a little bit more of an intensity than tasu. But Tasu Tishmeru has a different sense. Tasu has more of a sense of an immediacy, of a simplicity. It's just the doing, it's the performing of something. Your thoughts on that, Really?
I agree with you 100%. I would just add that specifically here in this pasuk, chukim are attached to this sense of guarding and watching out and being careful, being vigilant, because these are the ones that can easily fall to the wayside, because a lot of people say, as we'll see, a lot of people say, hey, listen, when the Bible says don't steal, okay, fine, because obviously you don't take people's property, except if you are collecting taxes. But but why shouldn't I wear a garment? Why shouldn't I buy this suit just because it has linen and wool? That's crazy, man.
Right.
So, and you can fall into that trap, as we'll see. So that requires vigilance.
So he explains. So the rules, the edicts are the mitzvot, the commandments that have no logical reason to them. And the rules, the mishpatim, are the mitzvot, commandments that do have a reasonableness.
Reasonableness, beautiful.
Yeah. It makes sense. It stands to reason, as we say. It's like, don't steal. Yeah, sure, don't steal. I mean, it's like, I don't steal yours, you don't steal mine. It's a social contract. It makes a lot of sense. You don't have to be Jewish to do that. Everybody understands that. We want to get along. So we do it. And really, in truth, when a person performs the commandments that have no reason, azayhu mizakech bazeh, through that a person is purifying or clarifying himself through that act. Lehavina mitzvot sheyesh lahem tam, to better understand those commandments that do stand to reason.
I mean, this opens up a whole thing, because he's saying a fascinating sentence here, that through the shmira, through the vigilant undertaking of the seemingly illogical mitzvahs, our minds become clarified so that we can truly understand. Now, we just got through saying that everyone in the world can understand. So why does he say that by doing the other, that you can they're understandable on that? We just got through saying they're reasonable.
Yeah.
Understandable. So I think what I'm hearing him saying is that you think you know the reason,
right,
for the reasonable commandments,
right?
But it's all from our perspective. From God's perspective, they're all reasonable.
Yeah.
So if I don't understand the reason for mitzvah A, but I do it anyway, that clarifies my perspective, so that I'll do mitzvah B that's reasonable, but I'll do it not because it's reasonable.
What he's suggesting is beautiful. He's suggesting that there's ordinary reasons, but there are deeper reasons. So if we get happy with ourselves and are satisfied with the ordinary reasons, we risk missing the deeper reason, the divine reason, the divine mind. And you can say, and I mean, I'm sure he says, because he's a tzaddik, that our purpose is to really understand or aspire to understand the divine mind, to understand it deeper.
Absolutely. The Rambam says that's actually a mitzvah saseh, to understand the yadata savaya location, and you should know God. You should understand.
Yeah.
So that means not understand the things that we can understand, but understand how to understand that.
Yeah. Well, just go deeper. Basically, there's always a deeper layer. There's not just one reason. There are layers of reason. And I mean, our tradition talks to that. I mean, there's, Pardes, there's Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod, so there is no one meaning to anything. There's always another layer, deeper layer, deeper layer, at least 4 layers, according to Jewish tradition. And here he's speaking to depth. It's the reason of a child, or the simple reason that anybody can come to, is good, but it's just a starting point. I think is what he's introducing here.
Yeah.
And the point is, says Azai mizakech, that one needs to clarify. In other words, to go deeper, you need to build some muscle. You need to develop the mind to be able to see bigger or more expansive, etc. And that's what he's saying. So he's saying the doing things without reason is actually giving you the tools to see deeper reason. Yeah. And that's a paradox you were talking about before. It's like, you want to stretch they say that, if you want to bend some materials, if you want to straighten them out, you have to bend them a little further, so they end up being in the right. So you have to stretch something. So to do something without no reason is a stretch. It's a mind stretch, right? Mm-hmm. That's like the stretching. Mm-hmm. That's how I understand. No, it's powerful, to be mizdakech, because the word mizdakech is to clarify, to sharpen the mind, to clarify the mind, to have a mind that's it's kind of like we mizakech a glass when you clean a window. It's kind of like you're taking the schmutz off so you can really see clearly through the pain.
Right. And to put it, what you're saying, to put it into sort of a Zen thing, it's basically freeing the mind from prejudgment. In other words, when I say this makes sense, that doesn't make sense, I'm placing a judgment on that. Right now, in my day-to-day dealings in the world, of course, I'm placing judgment. I'm not going to do that. But when it comes to, if I'm buying in to the idea of God's commandment, and I want to be within that circle.
Yeah.
So then for me to judge between one mitzvah and another.
Yeah.
This makes sense. That doesn't make sense. That's me. Then that becomes me.
Yeah.
It's all about me.
Right.
But if I'm mistakech and I'm cleaning those lenses and I'm just letting it happen without judgment.
Who knows what I'll discover, right?
Yeah, exactly.
אבל חס ושלום, כשאדם אינו עושה את המצוות, but God forbid if a person does not perform the commandments shem chukim, that are rules, meaning without reason, אזי אין לו שכל כלל להבין המצוות שיש להם טעם כדי לעשות. So then exactly. So he's saying that, and and he's laying it out, that then a person does not have the mind capacity to really understand the commandments that do present a reason, that stand to reason for thus doing. So v'zeu et chukotai tishmeru, and that's what it means. Guard my rules. כשתעשה המצוות שהם חוקים שאין להם טעם, when you do the commandments that are rules that do not have a clear reason, אזי יזכך שכלך, then your mind will be clarified. להבין המצוות שיש להם טעם לעשות. So he's actually repeating himself here, to understand the commandments that do stand to reason, the reason for their doing. Right. And now he concludes, he takes it like one step further. V'zeu et mishpatai ta'asu b'chulei. And this is what this verse means. V'zeu haremez, and how do we know that? It's hinted, asher yaseh adam v'chai b'hem. In the next verse, these are the things that a person will perform. And as you said before, ha'adam, universally the person, and live through them. What? שיבין שהמצוות הם החיות שלו. To come to understand that your life force, your very existence comes from performing these commandments. Your life force comes from this performance.
Right. In other words, when we don't differentiate between chukim and mishpatim, when we have this mindset and we just open ourselves up to that, then we provide ourselves with a keli. We make ourselves into a vessel within which can now be poured all this godliness and godly understanding. And that's real chayas, right? That's the divine energy. So I make room for divine energy.
Right.
And that's real chayas.
Mm-hmm.
And enlivenment.
Right. I think what you're saying here is that what does it mean to be enlivened? What does it mean to live? What does it mean to have life? You know? Mm-hmm. So he's saying to have life is not enough to, wake up in the morning, I'm breathing, I'm thinking, here I am, I feel myself, okay, I'm alive. Is that really life? Is that enough? And he's saying no. He's saying there's a certain flow of spiritual life, of allowing the divine to come into you and to fill you up. Mm. So that's a different definition of like you said, a chayut, right? It's not chay. It's not just to be alive or dead, but are you really alive?
Right.
Yeah. Are you letting the full, the full voltage?
Yeah, listen, there's a big difference between being alive and living.
I don't know if you've ever seen patients in a ward in a hospital that people are in a vegetative state. Sometimes they have brain injury and stuff. So they're alive. They have vital signs, right? So yeah. I'm saying that I don't want to make, God forbid, fun of that, and people should, people who are in that state should heal and come back if they can. And sometimes people can be in that state for a long time, and then they pass away. Rarely people come back and recover, depending on what the injury is. But I actually worked in a ward like that when in my youth, when I worked in the medical field.
Right. Yeah, it's understood.
It's a metaphor.
Right. It's an analogy. It's an analogy for the spiritual life, the metaphysical life.
Right.
So when we say chayut,
right.
Is that, that guy's really alive, living the fullest life according to our potential.
Right.
So this whole piece is really about that. It's about
right.
opening ourselves up to create a space where we can inject ourselves with spiritual liveliness.
Right.
And that comes from the non-judgment.
Right.
Yeah,
it comes from, I think it comes from non-judgment. It's hard to be not to be judgmental or to want to have a simple answer for something. So that's hard. But he's saying beyond that, he's saying it comes from nonsense. It's like, I'm doing it because it says so in the Torah. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm still doing it, because it's God's word, right? So, by the way, and I'm not, the Torah doesn't necessarily preach blind, what do you call that? Blind adherence. It's not about being blind or being like what we call chasid shoteh. There's in the Chazal, they talk about, the foolish follower, so that's not what they're talking about here. They're not talking about blind adherence, being a foolish follower, being an idiot, that does whatever one is told. It's not that. It's, I think, right? I mean, I want to make that.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah,
What he's saying verkeerd. He's saying the opposite of that. He's saying that do everything. You don't differentiate between types and categories. Just do your thing, and then you're going to find that you're going to get it. You're
yeah,
just going to get it. You're not going to wear the shatnez, the wool and the linen,
yeah.
and it's going to somehow eventually you're going to be transformed by that
Right,
in a real way.
right, right, right.
And you'll get it, and you'll even get why the things that are logical, you're going to get them in a totally different way.
Right,
Like you said earlier, it's going to go deeper and deeper and deeper if
right,
you just open yourself up to all of it.
right, right. It reminds me of, you spoke about Zen before. I think it's exactly Zen. It's sort of like the Torah version of the Zen exercise. You know what the Zen thing was? You had the Zen were kind of like the Hasidim of Buddhism at the time. So the ordinary Buddhism said, repeat this mantra, and you'll, whatever, you'll be enlightened. The Zen said, sit in front of a wall and stare at it. Forget the mantra. So there's something about, it's deeper than the magical, simplistic thing of I'll do this and I'll get a result.
Mm.
Go for no result. Just being. And here the Torahs say, just be with it. You don't have to do the calculation. Will this give me benefit? How is the mechanics of this work? What is, does that make sense? And here they say no sense or nonsense. Be with it. Do the mitzvah and let whatever come from the source from where the mitzvah came. There's a release of the simplistic need for simple answers. And you become better for it. So that's the best way I can.
Beautiful. No, that's it. That's it. Well said.
Yeah. So maybe we all be zoche, but really, I'll tell you, for me, it's really apropos because often, not even on a spiritual level, and obviously, the Kedushat Levi and all the Hasidim were such tzaddikim, and we can just wish to even come close to their, to their feet, as it were, in terms of that kind of wisdom and ability. But sometimes I have discussions with people, not even on a spiritual level, but people are super rationalists, and they say, I believe in logic. I actually have these conversations with my son sometimes because he's a young man and he believes in logic. He's into computers, so everything has to be linear. And I said, and I say to him, logic actually limits you, because logic depends on context. If you have a logic within a very narrow context, if you're, if you know very little, so your logic is very short, it's very little. So yes, A causes B, blah, 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 but logic is not enough. If you believe in logic, you're really locking yourself into ignorance. You need to, it's not about logic, it's about expanding your horizon. The same logic is just a method. You can't believe in logic. That's what I want to say to people who come to me with a simple logic argument. I say, no, it's actually the more complicated the logic, the better, the more true it is. You don't block yourself from bigger complexity. And here you have the Gemara. I think, it's our tradition is really, I would say, complexity is the path, right? But here, when the Kedushat Levi says, if you put away that simple judgment, that simple reason, you may open yourself up to a greater complexity, which is in the end, that's God's will, is this eternally complex. May we be, mizdakech, the word mizdakech, there's zoche in there, zoche merit. Maybe be zoche to be mizdakech. Exactly. All right. So with that, we'll wrap it up for today.
Yeah,
And
that was a good one.
yeah. So everybody, again, please. It's my job to remind us to, if you appreciated this, it's meaningful to us that you subscribe and maybe even like or share. Thank you for that. And we'll see you again next Wednesday at 9:00. Shalom for now.